What's up, everybody? Rob here. So, Afghanistan, the graveyard of empires, has claimed yet another victim. Now, normally my channel does not involve itself with current events for any number of reasons, but I figured I'd change that policy now and I'd talk about, well, what's going on in Afghanistan. It's a major historical event, and I figured I'd just, share some of my thoughts on it. All right, here we go. So, initially, when the U.S. invaded Afghanistan back in 2001, honestly, I think it was justifiable, but it was done horribly wrong. You see, after the 9/11 attacks, Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden were hiding out in Afghanistan. That's where they operated from. So to go in there and get them after 9/11, that was completely justifiable. Things kind of got bogged down, though. You see, a bunch of neocons thought it'd be a great idea to start nation building because that's the neocon wet dream. And they thought, oh, look, here's a bunch of people living in a third world country. Let's bring American values to them because neocon's gonna neocon. And instead of going in there, sending full force of might to figure out where Osama bin Laden was, oh, by the way, he was in Tora Bora. If we brought all of our might down on that area, we could have gotten him, maybe, blasted a couple holes in the caves he was hiding in, collapsed the caves on him, a couple J dams. And, that would have been the end of it. But no, we got bogged down trying to support the Northern Alliance to, well, basically take over the country and overthrow the Taliban, when in reality that should never have been the mission to begin with. Oh, and just on a side note here, since we're talking about bin Laden, he ended up in Pakistan, and Pakistan got off way, way too easy with all this. I'm just saying. I'm not saying we should go in there and bomb them or anything like that, but, they're our allies, and Osama bin Laden is like, what, a mile down the road from their military academy, and nobody knew? Come on. Don't let's not be stupid here. They got off way easy here, but that's another story. But in any case, we had this idea that let's try nation building. Why? Why are we nation building? I mean, look, the people of Afghanistan have had the same basic culture since the Bronze Age, okay? Alexander the Great dealt with pretty much the same ideology that we dealt with over here. The Mongols, the Mughals, Timurids, the British, the Soviets, and now the Americans all occupied the area, and it pretty much has stayed the same. There's been really no real change for their culture in those many thousands of years. The only real change was the introduction of Islam into the area. And other than that, they have basically a couple cities. You got Kabul, you got Kandahar, Herat, and maybe a few others. And then you got warlords. And that's pretty much it. Like, that's Afghanistan right there. And it's been that way since forever and will continue to be that way for many more centuries. And it just is. And the idea is, we're going to bring democracy to these people. I mean, look, Western civilization has a very long history of... if anybody, if you're familiar with my channel at all, I'm sure you're familiar with Western civilization and Western history. From the time of ancient Athens to now, it was a long, grinding experience to basically inculcate ideas of democracy, liberty, Enlightenment values, all that stuff. It took centuries. It was bloody. It was brutal. And, basically it's a cultural tradition that we have here in the West. And to simply try to impose that on people who, like I've said, literally have not changed their culture pretty much at all since the Bronze Age, it's madness. It's just absolute madness to think you can do it. And also, why do we care, though? I mean, look, there are oppressed people all over the world. Yeah, it's fine. But you know what? It is not our problem. It is not our problem. I don't care what the neocons say. I don't care what any bleeding hearts say. Sorry, look, we can't be going around imposing our will on other people for their own good. I mean, that's like how much evil in the world has been done in the name of the greater good, or it's for their own good, or they're going to benefit from this and all that stuff. No, come on. Now, the question that is coming up now is, how did the Taliban win? I believe the Taliban had 75,000 fighters. The Afghan army that we set up over there was about 300,000. How could they possibly have won? You have backing from the most powerful nation ever in human history. You outnumber them, almost 4 to 1, and you still lose. And not only do they lose, see, people are comparing this to Saigon. The fall of Kabul is like the fall of Saigon at the end of the Vietnam War. It's actually worse than that. See, American troops pulled out of Saigon in 1973, pulled out of Vietnam in 73. It lasted until 75, 2 years. Now, there was the Easter Offensive, and the NVA was thrown back with heavy American firepower. There was a lot of air support, B-52 strikes and such. But they still did manage to last 2 years until NVA tanks were rolling into Saigon. These guys lasted barely 2 weeks without Americans there. Okay, the Afghan government collapsed like literally like minutes after American troops pulled out and stopped propping them up. They just broke and ran. So how did the Taliban win? Well, they had the will to do so. The Afghan army, the U.S.-backed Afghan government, all of it was so horrifyingly corrupt. Soldiers would not be given pay. They would not be given the necessary supplies needed to fulfill their mission. Americans would be lied to. Like the American officials would be lied to about troop strengths. For example, they would say, "Oh yeah, we have 1,000 troops in this regiment," and really there was only like 600 or 700. So we just pay them because everything's so corrupt there, and the officials in charge would pocket the difference. So that was our American tax dollars going to pay for the maintenance of soldiers that don't actually exist. And the soldiers that were there weren't actually getting paid. Thusly, these corrupt officials were pocketing even more of our money. And basically, it was just a complete corrupt disaster. So you got that, which obviously didn't help. So now you have soldiers who are fighting for an ideology they don't care about. Like I said, they don't really care about democracy and freedom and women's rights and all that stuff. Like, they don't care. The average Afghan citizen does not care about any of that stuff in any meaningful capacity. And they're fighting for that, for pay that they're not receiving. And then they broke and ran, and we're sitting here wondering, how could that possibly have happened? I mean, come on. Now, there were initial rumors a couple weeks ago that there were outposts, on the far fringes of government control. And they actually did resist the Taliban when the Taliban started rolling in. And they did resist, and they, however, were left completely unsupported, and that the corrupt government would not send additional reinforcements. They didn't send food. They did not send ammunition, and they basically just started to surrender because they were basically cut out there, completely cut off, and were not receiving any support. So they tried to hold, at least my understanding is they tried to hold the line as best they could, but when you're running out of ammunition, and you signal, hey, we need more ammo, we need reinforcements here, we need food, and the government just ignores them or disregards it, well, yeah, of course they're going to surrender, and that just led to a domino effect, and everything just sort of snowballed from there. So how true that is, I really don't know, but I have been hearing those types of reports. But that is definitely not good for morale when you hear your soldier and you hear rumors of your comrades, 100 miles away or so. Yeah, we're running out of ammunition, and the government's not going to support them at all. Like, they're not doing everything they can to keep these guys in fighting condition. Yeah, it's going to put a little bit of a damper on your fighting spirit. I'm just going to say, morale is kind of important in warfare. And speaking of morale, well, the Taliban, they had the morale advantage. These guys are true believers. Now, jihad for them is a way of life. Now, for those who aren't unfamiliar with the Taliban and their ideology, they actually are not native to Afghanistan. They're actually a Pakistani thing. A brief history here. When the Soviets invaded back in the, they invaded in 79, but later on in the war, they developed a scorched earth policy because they basically wanted to, they were having the same problems that pretty much every army ever has in Afghanistan, controlling the populace. And what happened was they got sick of it, so they decided to go with a straight scorched earth policy. And they flooded as many civilians from the rural areas into the cities as possible, which the Soviets did have control over, and they just pretty much carpet bombed the rest. And if you were seen in a rural area, they just gunned you down. Right? The Soviets were way less squeamish about body counts than we are. And anyway, a lot of refugees, obviously this is going to create a ton of refugees, a lot of them ended up in Pakistan. And in order to avoid spending time in refugee camps, which sucks, what they would do is a lot of young boys would get sent off to madrasas, basically religious schools. And these religious schools in Pakistan, some of them, taught a very apocalyptic version of Islam, in which basically not only is the end of the world nigh, let's kick things off a little bit faster. And oh, by the way, the final battle between good and evil is like right around the corner, and good is our side and evil is everybody else. That's the Taliban. Okay, they have that very apocalyptic, like the final battle is nigh, and so basically they're trying to clear the stage for the final battle between good and evil. So these guys are hardcore true believers. Okay, that's kind of what they do. That's their thing. And so when you have that kind of belief in your cause, like you were literally a foot soldier in the final apocalyptic battle between good and evil against a guy who's there fighting for an ideology he doesn't actually care about, and he's only doing it for pay. And oh, by the way, he's not even getting paid. Well, who do you think is going to win? I don't care what kind of firepower you have theoretically backing you up. I don't care how much you outnumber your enemy. It's like this. There's no way that this can last. And the Taliban, like I said, these guys are true believers. They're not exactly going to be swayed by promises of freedom and democracy. Oh, and look, here's Netflix and OnlyFans and free porn. Like, you think these guys are going to be swayed by that? Yeah, truth, justice, in the American way. No, like they literally think that they're fighting like the final apocalyptic battle. It's like right around the corner. I mean, really, this is what we're up against here. Like a vast underestimation of the determination and the will of these guys. These guys are willing to endure all kinds of hardship because they believe their cause that much. So, yeah. So with the Taliban in power, what's going to happen next? They are going to solidify power. They're going to consolidate. Now, I've heard them saying, they're going to respect the rights of women according to Sharia law. It's like, yeah, that's a bunch of BS. They're going to go right back to the way they were previously. Like, come on. They're going to respect the rights of civilians, and they're not going to take out recriminations against people. No, they're going to basically do whatever they want to do because they know that they can get away with it. And so they're going to try to reclaim the country. Basically, we're going back to 2001, before the U.S. invasion, and it's just going to be the status quo like it was before that. I guarantee it. Now, nature abhors a vacuum, and with American influence leaving the region, what is the next major power that's going to try to take over the area? Well, probably the Chinese. Now, the Chinese do have very significant interests in Central Asia. They've been wanting to do this for decades. They want to set up a rail network. I think it's the Belt and Road, I think it's called. But in any case, it's a rail network from China to, I believe, a Turkish port along the Black Sea. I could be mistaken on that. I haven't looked it up recently. But basically, what they want to do is they want to have an overland route, basically a Silk Road 2.0, between China and easy access to Europe. And that way they can avoid shipping to Europe, having to go around India and ending up in the bottleneck of the Suez Canal. It's a lot more efficient that way, at least in theory. And Central Asia is absolutely vital to this, and so therefore is Afghanistan. Now, the Taliban, obviously, right now Afghanistan is an utter disaster. Before the Taliban clamps in, the whole area is rife with unrest. So what I think is going to happen is the Chinese are going to prop up the Taliban. The Taliban needs money. So what they're going to do is they're going to prop them up and just use soft power. They're not going to send any boots on the ground there. I highly doubt they will. And they're just going to say, hey, just keep things in order here while we build this rail network, this railway here. Even if it doesn't go through Afghanistan, just the fact that the areas of unrest might be a bit of a problem. So just keep the area in control. We'll feed you money, and otherwise do whatever you want. Humanitarian, do you think the Chinese really care about Taliban humanitarian abuses? I mean, come on, let's be honest here. They don't care about abuses against their own people. You think they really care about the Taliban? Also, the Taliban is going to sell all that hardware that was left behind, Humvees, MRAPs, a couple Black Hawk helicopters that were left behind. They're either going to sell them to the Chinese, who are going to reverse engineer it and have their own copy and use our technology, or possibly to the Iranians, or possibly both, maybe an auction, I don't know. But the point is, all that hardware, people think that the Taliban are going to use it. They could. That is certainly possible. Honestly, the warehouse is full of M4s and squad automatic weapons and all that stuff. They're going to use that directly. But a lot of this, the heavier hardware, like the Humvees and the vehicles and stuff like that, night vision, all that kind of stuff, they're going to probably sell it to the highest bidder, more than likely the Chinese or the Iranians. Just a way to keep them propped up, and they're going to need the cash sooner rather than later. So they're going to use it that way. As far as the other minerals, there's estimated about $2 to $3 trillion worth of rare earth elements and other precious metals and other types of mineral resources in Afghanistan, which have not been touched at all. Incidentally, that's pretty much the amount of money that Americans spent on the war. The American taxpayers have spent on the war in Afghanistan. The Chinese again, are probably not going to send troops in there directly to get them. However, they will contract it out to the Taliban or people who are willing to work with the Taliban, and they're going to reap the rewards that way. Again, um, they have a lot of interest in the area, including these mineral resources. I don't know how that's exactly going to play out, but again, I don't think the Chinese are going to be invading directly. I really don't think so. It's going to be a soft power thing over there. Basically, just throw a couple billion their way every now and then, have the Taliban keep order, and mostly it's for this rail network, but also if they can get these minerals, so much better. Oh, and by the way, when I say Chinese dollars, that's actually American dollars because we buy so much of their Chinese, cheaply made Chinese goods. Then whenever we buy something made in China, we're actually funding the Chinese government because, you think private companies really exist in China. I mean, come on, they are literally communists. So, yeah, I'm not bitter or anything about this whole situation. Basically, my whole thoughts on Afghanistan in this whole thing is that it was very poorly thought out from the beginning. There was this mission creep right from the beginning. And honestly, the objective should have been go in there, find bin Laden, rip apart Al-Qaeda. If the Taliban gets in the way, mess them up. Okay, we got him. Okay, good. Leave. Are we going to try to? We're going to set up girls' schools in Afghanistan. Why? Why is that our business? Oh, it's the humanitarian thing to do. Why do we have to do humanitarian things? Look, it's not our business. It's the place of Americans, of the American people, the American military, is not to go around spreading our ideology, which is very specific to Western civilization, to people who not only do not fully understand this, but also at the same time, it's antithetical to everything that they stand for, and try to force it. Like, it took thousands of years of experience to get where we are today here in the Western world, and we're just going to impose it on them in 20 years. I mean, come on. It's stupid. It's retarded. Defense contractors made a ton of money. That's a good thing. I mean, Halliburton, they made a lot of money. If you own stock in those companies, you made a killing there. I just don't think that the region was worth 20 years, about 2,300 American dead, and 2 to 3, some say even $4 trillion of American taxpayer money for nothing, which we shouldn't even have done to begin with. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on Afghanistan. Honestly, it's going to be very interesting, and by interesting I mean somewhat terrifying. This is definitely going to bolster China because they're going to move into the region. Possibly Russia as well. Russia does have interest in that area. They have since at least the 19th century. Soviet Union, things kind of got a little off the rails there, but we know about that one. But there's possibly going to be a clash between the spheres of China and Russia in the region, both spheres of influence there. I think China's going to end up coming out on top. They are the ascendant power, and also this is probably worrying towards India because, well, India is now poised as a major rival to China, and China wants to set up this, like I said, this railway network, basically connect themselves directly to Europe, and it's basically something that could undermine the power of India, who's also a growing power in the region. Pakistan is not a big fan of India, so Pakistan's going to probably throw in its lot with China. And these are all nuclear powers, and the whole region is now poised for. I'm not going to go as far as to say like nuclear exchange is inevitable or even highly likely. It's just that like this is going to lead to some degree of tension there. So yeah, the point is that everything is stupid and should never have been there for this long to begin with. And now that we're out, I think we should have done it years sooner. It could have been, the evacuation could have been handled a little more effectively, certainly, but we should never have been in there on that scale to begin with. So there you go. Neocon's going to neocon, and I'm done with foreign invasions and foreign adventures and trying to bring democracy to the rest of the world. That's pretty much it for this rant. Just my thoughts on this. I've been pretty much glued to coverage of what's going on over there, and just want to give my opinion. So in any case, that's it for this video. Please hit the like and subscribe button. More videos coming out whenever I get around to it. Have a good day, or don't have a good day. Your adults have any kind of day you want. See you later.